Guys, UFC 270, Ciryl Gane versus Francis Ngannou is coming up Saturday. I personally predict this will be the biggest heavyweight fight in all time. And I'll tell you what, our friends and show sponsors over at DraftKings Sportsbook are offering an incredible deal to help us celebrate. Bet just $1 DraftKings Sportsbook. If either Ngannou or Gane lands a single punch on Saturday night, you will win $100 in free bets. You heard that right. One jab, a cross, a hook, a uppercut, a haymaker, a hammer fist. If they touch the other opponent with their glove anywhere on the body, you are going to get $100 in free bets. All you have to do is go sign up at DraftKings Sportsbook by clicking on the link below. Use the promo code Sonnen and bet just $1. Guys, this is a no-brainer. DraftKings is safe, secure, and it's reliable. Best of all, you can deposit and withdraw your cash whenever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. Use the promo code Sonnen and bet $1. Wait for these monsters to land a punch this Saturday and you win. That's code Sonnen only at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC. What is the psychology between Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane? What is it, guys? Because I believe 2 months ago, this fight to be the biggest heavyweight title fight of all time. Now, I've got to word it like that. I can't just call it the biggest fight of all time. I just can't. Because you factor in UFC 100 or 200 or Conor versus Khabib, right? There's some real outliers, and I want the statement to be right. So I'm going to say the biggest, I believe, 60 days ago, heavyweight fight of all time is going to be champion versus champion, teammates and friends, Ciryl Gane, Francis Ngannou. It is going to be a wonderful night of business. I understand that. I am counting down the days, and I know many of you are, but we are the hardcore fans. We're coming along no matter what. Is that fair? When's the last time you guys missed a pay-per-view, right? Yeah, same for me. I explain it that way because this is going to do very well. It is going to be a top 10. It's going to be all sorts of really good things. To be number one, right? I mean, you see the difference here? So when it comes out and it does very well, I don't want you to think you're throwing egg in my face. I get that it's going to do very well. I'm just stating to the fact that it did not go up to the potential. And that is 100% on the champion and the interim champion. So what do you do when I'm asking you the psychology? Because this isn't about trash talk, guys. There is plenty of stories here that don't have anything to do with putting the other guy down, just telling the story. And thank God in heaven above for Coach Lopez for coming out and giving us some kind of an insight, releasing training videos, letting us know. In 2019, these guys shared a room together, letting us know I've trained both of them. I will now be with Ciryl tonight. These things are fascinating, but if it wasn't for that coach, we would have none of that. How much else is out there? What else goes into this story? And what is the reasons that neither one of them came to the table? Now, you could start at just the very basic answer, which is they both suck at promotion. You could start with that. It's not like, historically speaking, Francis has ever given us stuff that make us count down the days to his fight. It's not like anywhere within Ciryl Gane's past he ever really lit the media world on fire. So possibly you're just dealing with two duds. Okay. But every time Francis does speak, and I did see something he did with Megan O'Leary, and it did have a whole lot to do with his up-and-coming fight. It had a lot to do with him and his mindset. It was great. I used to think, keep Francis quiet. For the same reasons that Vince McMahon doesn't let Brock Lesnar speak. Do you guys know why that is? Vince McMahon believes monsters don't talk. And he wants Brock to be mysterious and to come out as a monster, so he has Paul do the talking for him. Just to share with you, that's why Brock doesn't talk. It's not because Brock's not good or eloquent, or has got a funny voice. It's none of those things. Vince is just living the character of keep this beast quiet and mysterious. All right. For those same reasons, I thought that would be best if we did that with Francis. Francis could be the one guy who never needs to open his mouth, and it will serve him even more because he is very intimidating looking. I don't believe that anymore. When I started to learn the life story of Francis Ngannou, I could not put that book down. Joe Rogan played a hand in telling the story of Francis, what life used to be like, what it was like to get here, what Francis used to think his trajectory was going to be, the way that he found an out for him and his family. It was awesome. And when that story finally did end, I was disappointed. I wanted more. So I changed my mind. All right, Francis has something here, and he's a very intelligent guy. He comes, I think, charismatic, more than even intelligent. He's a very charismatic and likable guy. Let's keep him doing interviews. But he hasn't done anything based on the fight for Ciryl. Now, my question to you once again is why? There are guesses that we could take. A guess could be that he likes Ciryl. If that were the case, I wish he would just tell us that, because that's also interesting. I like this guy. Here's what I like about him. Here's a couple of things that happened when we used to work together. Here's something nice he did for me. Here's something nice I did for him. I never thought he would challenge for my belt. I wouldn't have done this to him. I thought we were boys. If it's anything like that, I'm compelled to that story. And while that might sound like the opposite of fight promotion, it might sound like fight demotion, I'm still into the story. And for my money and time that I'm going to separate with, if your only commodity is to bring me the punches and kicks under the unified rules on the agreed upon date, I'd like a little more. I like a little more. I like that Tyson Fury is going to give us the punches under the Queensberry rules, but he's also going to sing us a song afterwards. I like a little more. I'm greedy. I want as much value as I can get. So perhaps Francis feels something like that towards Ciryl and is just not comfortable going at him. But another guess, and a very good one, would be, he knows Ciryl a little bit better than you might think. And he doesn't want to give him any extra motivation. That's also a very real thing that fighters will do. Whether they have a friendly relationship or they have a very hostile relationship. Some fighters just don't want to stir that up. They don't want the guy any more angry or any more motivated. Okay, it's a guess. We're guessing here. Because it has to be something. These guys are expected to do something, and they've done nothing. And if it wasn't for the coach, we truly are just stuck with two behemoths that are going to go in there and fight. But there is more to it. Ciryl Gane is now the favorite, guys. If I would have told you that Ciryl Gane was going to be the interim champion a year ago, you would not have believed me. If I would have told you that Ciryl Gane would be challenging for the Undisputed Championship, and I said this to you a year ago, you would not have believed me. If I told you that Ciryl Gane was going to main event pay-per-views 1 year ago, you would not have believed me. But if I told you that Ciryl Gane was going to take on Francis Ngannou and the betting public, you guys, were going to back Ciryl with your money thinking he can beat Francis Ngannou, and I told you that a year ago, you just wouldn't have believed me. It's just, what a difference a day makes. I feel as though the best part of this story is still being looked over. The absolute most interesting part of Ciryl versus Francis, and it's incumbent on me to tell you guys because they sure as hell aren't, but the most interesting part of this is Ciryl may be the one true threat to Francis. We won't know until they actually get in there. But as of right now, the line at DraftKings, Ciryl is the favorite. It's very close. It's very close money. We're talking about a minus 120 here. It's damn near dead even, but it does favor one guy, and that's Ciryl. So I feel as though when I have that evidence of a line at DraftKings, that proves one thing, which is you think, or you're in the majority if you think Ciryl is going to win. If that is true, and Ciryl is the one, because if I asked you right now, can Francis beat John Jones? Daniel Cormier waited on that, said hell yes he could. Can Francis beat Cain Velasquez? Can Francis beat Stipe? Can Francis beat... If I just went through the whole list, you would say yes, 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 and yes to Francis. So if we've acknowledged that Ciryl, at least within the betting public's level of psyche, believed that Ciryl is the greatest threat to Francis, that's where this whole story comes from, because Ciryl shouldn't be here. Ciryl is being given this opportunity, not because Francis gave it to him, not because Francis likes him, not because the rankings said. Ciryl went and took this opportunity by agreeing to fight Derek Lewis in Houston and capturing the interim championship. He was only offered that opportunity because Francis turned it down. That is the single most compelling storyline of this entire fight. If the bettors are right and Ciryl beats Francis, Francis will now have lost to a guy who he never would have had to fight. Francis created this fight. Francis rejecting the fight of Derek Lewis in Houston. I have to say Derek Lewis and I have to say Houston because there was something about that date. In defense of Francis, he was all for the fight. He'd already done it once. He'll do it again. There was something, he just couldn't get there in Houston. But because he couldn't get there in Houston, come hook or crook, whatever reason, run, walk, or crawl, he didn't show up. Ciryl goes in. The interim champion fights the undisputed champion. We only have the rules in this sport that we make up on the spot, but that's one of them that has always been preserved. The undisputed champion doesn't even think to turn down the interim champion, and vice versa. They just know they're going to compete. So think of it from that standpoint. Ciryl Gane is in this opportunity against Francis, a match that you guys think Ciryl is going to win, which will be a massive upset, particularly if you were talking about these players a short 12 months ago, and he never would have been here if it wasn't for Francis. It was the single biggest miscalculation Francis has done, if you guys are right. If Ciryl is his greatest threat, and it doesn't really matter if Francis beats Ciryl, truly it does not. If that's his hardest fight, if that's the most he ever has to dig deep, he still is in a very tough position because of decisions that he made. Now just imagine if Ciryl does beat him. Francis has now lost to a guy who we would not even need to see in the next 3 or 4 fights. Ciryl Gane was not climbing the ranks. He hadn't been to a main event spot yet. He was not in the 5-round club. And he wasn't going to be there anytime soon because he's not very good at self-promotion. People just weren't buying it. People just were not seeing it. And he wasn't out there screaming with the blowhorn saying, put the attention on me. It was one of those things, in many realistic scenarios, Francis could have fought a meaningful career, which is 2 and 3 and maybe as many as 4 more fights. I mean, that would be a ton of fights, particularly as champion, if he was to go out there and do it 4 times, and have never ran into Ciryl, which you guys, just according to the numbers, believe to be Francis's greatest threat. That's one of the stories that needs to come out. And as I'm talking about the psychology leading in to 2 guys with straps in the featured weight class of heavyweight remaining silent, all the questions that I just posed for you and put Francis's name in front of, insert those same questions, and now make Ciryl the principal. Does Ciryl not want to hurt Francis's feelings? Does Ciryl not want to stir the pot? Does Ciryl not take this opportunity real? Does Ciryl not understand that you've got a sport to do, but you've also serving a business? Does he just not get these things? Because nothing in Ciryl's past says that he's ever understood this. And if he grabs the belt and he's going to go run with it, I mean, imagine that this was John Jones. John is going to come after Ciryl in some capacity. That will put Ciryl on the defensive, and maybe he's a counterpuncher. Maybe he comes back. Maybe he plays along later. Maybe, but maybe not. This should have been the biggest heavyweight fight of all time. This will be a fantastic attraction. It will not live up to its potential.